The two words I am are the name of God. Thus, when you use these words, I encourage you to keep in mind that this is your own divine name as well. As the scriptures remind us, let the weak man say, I am strong. Thus, I urge you to be mindful of what you say to yourself when you use the name of God. I am should always have that which is aligned with God in the same sentence. Here's how I use these powerful frequencies in my daily meditation practice. Think of the 5 words, I am that I am. In your mind, place a comma after the word that. Let that represent for you what you would like to manifest or become as a person. And I can't stress this enough. Write down on paper precisely what that represents for you. Whatever constitutes your wish, write it down, and in your mind, call it that. For example, that could mean your perfect health, or abundance, or a specific job, or a happy, loving partnership, or anything at all. Write it down and be specific. And as you close your eyes in meditation, let your inner mantra be, I am that. For example, I am perfect health. I am abundance. I am in possession of the job I seek. Here you are getting used to the idea of using your imagination as your guide and living in your inner mental world as if what you desire is already your reality, is already a present fact. Your future dream in your imagination is a present fact. The words I am are the name of God, which is synonymous with your highest self. You are not saying I will be or I hope to be. You are speaking as God speaks, calling that which does not exist as though it already did. Say it over and over as your inner mantra, I am that, and make that represent whatever it is that you would like to attract into your life, and that represents your highest wishes that are now in alignment with your source of being. So the name I am is really the name of God. And you have to ask yourself the question, every time you use it, in the book of Joel it says, let the weak say, I am strong. How do you declare your I ams? Because most of your I ams are associated with your ordinariness, with your physical world, with your mind that you're speaking about. But when you begin to say, I am well, which I say to myself, and I've had a diagnosis that tells me I'm not supposed to be able to say that, but I know the greatest gift I've ever been given is the gift of my imagination, the gift of being able to place anything in there and put a do not disturb sign around it and super glue my intentions to that inner place. And you mentioned the words Jesus said, I am the way, I am the truth. He also said, I am the resurrection. He didn't say I am the crucifixion. And we've placed so much emphasis on that in the world, on the suffering, and not enough, I think, on this being who is transcended and is that being of light. But I ask every one of you watching, every one of you in here, to be very careful when you use the words I am, because you say I am weak. When Moses said, what is your name? God didn't say, my name is I hope things work out, or my name is I will be. Because to say I will be means I am not. He said, I am that I am, meaning everything that exists, I am that I am, which means you. And you can use the name, I am. And one of the things, Eckhart, you and I talked about in preparation for doing this is not only to look at it from sort of a academic, philosophical point of view, but how can we apply what our teachings really bring to the world? I don't think it's an accident that people like yourself and myself have an audience for that return to source. I just did a public television special, public television, and it's basically, the theme of it is, it's called Wishes Fulfilled, but the theme of it is the God is in every single one of us, and that they approved it really surprised me, but because they're always so careful about separating out and you can't say you are God and that you are divine and all of that. That word I am is very big in my consciousness and in my awareness. I've just written a whole book that'll be out in the spring on this whole idea of I am.
There comes a moment in every life when the soul whispers softly at first that something isn't right, that despite the things you've gathered, the achievements you've counted, the steps you've followed, something remains untouched, unawakened, unfulfilled. Not because life has failed you, but because your thoughts have not yet remembered their power. You see, you are not merely a body moving through the world. You are a field of consciousness creating it. And the lens through which you look at the world, your thoughts, is not a passive reflection of life, but the very projector of its quality. What you think is not just commentary, it's alchemy. You don't see things as they are. You see things as you are through the stories you've chosen, through the meanings you've inherited, through the emotions you allow to linger like smoke in the chambers of your mind. Your outer world is always mirroring the dominant vibration of your inner world. And your thinking, moment by moment, is the tuning fork. The universe, being eternally impartial, says only this: as you believe, so shall it be done unto you. You are not what the world calls you. You are not your name, your title, your reputation, or your fears. You are the thinker behind the thoughts, the dreamer behind the mask, the awareness, watching it all unfold, and waiting, always waiting, for you to reclaim your authorship of this life. Most people never pause to wonder, who is doing the thinking in here? And where did these thoughts come from? They repeat patterns like a song stuck on repeat. Songs of lack, of worry, of comparison, of judgment, never realizing that they are dancing to music. They never chose that their mind has become a house built by strangers, and now they live inside it, calling it truth. But thought is not fixed. It is fluid. It can be questioned, it can be healed, it can be elevated, and when it is, life itself begins to take a new shape. The quality of your life is not determined by the conditions you're in, but by the conversations you're having with yourself about those conditions. It's not the storm that breaks you. It's the belief that you cannot sail through it. Begin to listen, truly listen, to the voice that speaks just beneath the noise, the still, silent knowing that's always been with you. It doesn't shout, it doesn't panic, it doesn't echo the world's madness. It simply reminds you, you are not your thoughts. You are the one who chooses which thoughts get to stay. And that is the first liberation, to recognize that you are not a prisoner of your thinking. You are its master. But mastery begins with awareness. Every moment you catch yourself thinking a thought that limits you, a thought that shrinks your spirit or dim your light, is a holy moment, a spiritual opportunity. Not to shame yourself, but to remember yourself. To remember that no one installed that thought without your permission, and that now, in this breath, you can choose again. The quality of your life is not waiting at the end of some distant achievement. It is shaped, molded in the unseen furnace of your inner dialogue. Do you feed the flame of resentment? Do you pour gasoline on thoughts of fear, of not being enough, of being left behind? Do you carry the past into today like a sack of stones, repeating, "This is just how I am," as if your identity were carved in stone rather than breathed into being? Or do you wake up each morning and choose a new vibration? Do you speak to yourself with love before the world gets a chance to interfere? Do you plant thoughts of peace, joy, forgiveness, and water them with presence until they bloom into a life that reflects your soul? Most people treat thoughts like facts, but thoughts are just clouds passing through the vast sky of your awareness. You are not the cloud, you are the sky. And in that realization, you are free. Let me ask you gently, what have you been thinking about today? Because that's what you've been living. The world around you is echoing back the tone you set in silence, and nothing will change until the thinking does. So if you want to heal your relationships, change your thinking about connection. If you want to find peace, change your thinking about the past. If you want to create abundance, change your thinking about worth. And if you want to love yourself, change your thinking about who you believe you are. It is never about adding more. It is always about subtracting the noise. You were born whole. You were born wise. You were born connected to the divine. And every thought that told you otherwise was an illusion borrowed from a world that forgot how to see. But today you remember, that is the beginning of everything. The moment you begin to observe your thinking without becoming it, something miraculous happens. A quiet space opens up between stimulus and response, between the noise of the world and the whisper of your soul. In that space lives your power not to react, but to choose, not to cling, but to release, not to fear, but to trust. And that single shift from automatic to aware begins to alter the very texture of your life. You stop being dragged by circumstance and start becoming guided by consciousness. You stop trying to control the uncontrollable and begin to align with what is eternal within you. There is no circumstance outside of you that holds more weight than the thoughts you are rehearsing inside you. You may not control what others do, what they say, or what has already happened, but you do control the meaning you assign to it. And meaning is everything. A thought of betrayal can become a teacher of boundaries. A thought of loss can become a doorway to gratitude. A thought of failure can become the seed of wisdom. It all depends on the thinker. We've been conditioned to believe that happiness is circumstantial, that peace is a destination, that worth must be proven. But none of that is true. It never was. The outer world is merely the shadow cast by the shape of your thoughts. And when you sculpt those thoughts with love, with intention, with a gentle but firm sense of presence, the world reflects a beauty that was waiting all along. No spiritual teacher, no enlightened soul ever reached peace by rearranging the furniture of the world. They reached it by rearranging the architecture of their inner world. They learned to master the mind, to see through its tricks, to soften the grip of judgment, and to return again and again to the spaciousness of now. They did not wait for perfect conditions. They created a perfect perception. And that is the invitation for you. The quality of your life is shaped by the quality of the questions you ask yourself. Not, why is this happening to me? But what is this showing me? Not, what do I lack? But, what is life trying to bring forward in me through this? The quality of your thinking is determined by your willingness to surrender the need to be right, to be certain, to be in control. Because real transformation does not come from control. It comes from trust. It comes from the surrender of false stories and the embrace of the sacred present. You were not born to ruminate in regret or spiral in worry. You were born to create. And your primary creation is the thought you allow to take root in your mind. That thought becomes emotion. That emotion becomes behavior. That behavior becomes character. And character becomes destiny. Trace it all back, and it begins with one silent seed, one thought. So plant well. Think of your thoughts as guests in the temple of your mind. Who are you letting in today? Who are you allowing to sit at the table of your awareness? Are they voices of fear or faith? Are they the voices of past wounds or present miracles? You are the gatekeeper. You are the master gardener. And whatever you nourish within will blossom in the world without. Do not underestimate this power. It is not a metaphor. It is spiritual law. Change the frequency of your thoughts, and you will alter the symphony of your life. This is not about positive thinking for the sake of ignoring pain. It is about conscious thinking that acknowledges pain but does not build a home inside it. It is about choosing the higher perspective even when the lower one screams louder. It is about rising not because the world demands it, but because your soul remembers its wings. And yes, there will be days when the old thoughts return, when the inner critic bangs on the door, when the fog sets in again. That's okay. This is not a path of perfection. It is a path of presence. And presence is a practice. Every moment you return to your breath, every moment you observe without judgment, every moment you choose a higher thought that is victory, that is healing, that is awakening. Your thoughts are not who you are. They are passing weather systems in the vast sky of your being. Let them come, let them go, but don't let them build cities without your consent. Don't let them shape your life from unconscious repetition. You are not here to be a mirror of past programming. You are here to be a lighthouse, steady, awake, and rooted in truth. Let go of the belief that change begins outside of you. Let go of the belief that one day, when circumstances are just right, then you'll feel peace. The truth is simpler and more liberating. When you choose peaceful thoughts, your life becomes peaceful. When you think thoughts of compassion, you walk in compassion. When you honor yourself in thought, the world begins to honor you. It's not magic, it's alignment. And alignment begins when the mind remembers its servant role, not its master role. When the ego is seen clearly not as an enemy, but as a confused guide doing its best to protect you through fear. But you, dear soul, do not need to be protected by fear. You need to be liberated by truth. And the truth is this: your thinking shapes your frequency. And your frequency writes the melody your life will play. Then listen deeply now. Not just with your ears, but with the whole of your being, with the space behind your chest where the silence lives, with the gentle fire of awareness that never flickers, no matter how chaotic the world becomes. That space knows your life is not dictated by chance, nor is it controlled by fate. It is directed by the silent compass of your attention, and your attention always flows in the direction of your thoughts. Where your focus goes, your energy grows. Where your energy grows, your reality unfolds. And the seed of it all is thought. So if your life feels noisy, heavy, cluttered with conflict and confusion, the answer is not to rearrange the people around you or chase more distractions. The answer is to cleanse the temple of your mind. Dust off the old assumptions, wash away the fear-stained beliefs, open the windows of perception, and let the light of awareness pour in. Ask yourself, is this thought bringing me closer to freedom or further into suffering? That one question, asked honestly and gently, can save a lifetime of unnecessary pain. You do not need to believe every thought you think. You are not obligated to obey the voices that echo with limitation, fear, or doubt. You are allowed to pause, to breathe, to question. You are allowed to say, I no longer choose to live under that belief. And in that moment, chains begin to fall. Not the kind you see with your eyes, but the kind that have been weighing down your spirit for years. And that release, that sweet, invisible liberation, that is the soul beginning to remember itself. Many people are walking through life asleep to the miracle of their mind, asleep to the truth that heaven and hell are not places we go, but frequencies we choose. A thought of bitterness is a step toward hell. A thought of compassion is a step toward heaven. And these steps, taken moment by moment, build the path your feet will follow. Do not wait for a burning bush. Do not wait for thunder in the sky or a voice to break through the clouds. The voice is already inside you. It speaks in the silence. It speaks when you slow down long enough to hear the deeper questions. What am I rehearsing in my mind each day? What am I practicing with my inner dialogue? And does it serve the life I truly want to live? Because here is the hidden truth. You are always practicing something. Every thought you entertain, every judgment you accept, every fear you repeat, you are strengthening a pathway in your mind. That pathway becomes the direction of your life. So ask yourself, is this a path of light? Is this a path of freedom? Or am I unconsciously paving roads to old prisons? You are not broken. You are not behind. You are simply ready to awaken. That is why these words resonate. Not because they are new, but because they are ancient truths you've always known. Deep down, beneath the noise, beneath the conditioning, beneath the expectations, your soul has always whispered, I am the thinker, I am the chooser, and I am free to choose again. Begin now. Begin today. Let this moment be the turning point, not the dramatic kind that needs lightning bolts or emotional fireworks, but the quiet kind where the soul simply stands up and says, no more thoughts that shrink me, no more stories that shame me, no more identities borrowed from pain. In their place, you begin to plant the seeds of clarity, of love, of worthiness. You begin to think as if life is on your side. You begin to believe that peace is not something to chase, but something to allow. You begin to live from the knowing that you are enough, not because you proved it, but because you remembered it. And that shift, subtle though it may be, is how miracles begin. Because when you change the way you think, you change the way you feel. When you change the way you feel, you change what you believe is possible. And when you change what you believe is possible, the universe rearranges itself to reflect that belief. Not because it was withholding, but because you were. You were withholding permission to receive because you didn't believe you were worthy. You were withholding love because you were afraid of being hurt. You were withholding peace because you thought chaos was your default setting. But now you begin to allow. And allowing begins with a thought. A single thought that whispers, what if the old story is not the truth? And once that thought enters, the whole house of illusion begins to shake. Because the mind that has built its home on fear cannot withstand the gentle wind of truth. That truth is simple. You are not your past. You are not your pain. You are not the voice that says you'll never make it. You are the awareness that hears that voice and chooses something higher. So today, choose again. Choose the thought that lifts you. Choose the thought that brings you back to stillness. Choose the thought that speaks to your future, not your fear. And when you forget, because you will simply remember that forgetting is part of remembering. Falling asleep is part of waking up. There is no shame in it, only grace. The quality of your life is not about what you have. It is not about what they think. It is about what you believe, what you nurture, what you entertain in the invisible world of your mind. And that is where your greatest work must begin, not in trying to force the external, but in softening, cleansing, and renewing the internal. Because when the internal world is healed, the external world becomes a mirror of that healing. And you become the light you were seeking. And when you become the light you were seeking, you stop chasing shadows. You stop grasping at empty promises wrapped in noise. You stop running from yourself because you finally realize there is nowhere to run. Everything you've ever wanted was already resting within the quiet space of your own being, waiting for your thoughts to align with its presence, not to earn it, but to see it. To see that your worth was never in question, only in recognition. That love was never absent, only obscured by the fog of conditioned belief. There is a profound shift that happens when you stop thinking in reaction and begin thinking in creation. When you stop allowing every passing fear to dictate your emotional climate and instead become the conscious author of your internal world. In that shift, you stop being a thermometer reacting to the temperature of the world, and you become the thermostat setting the tone of your life from the inside out. That is not philosophy. That is power. That is freedom. That is mastery. It doesn't happen by force. It happens by remembrance. And remembering is a sacred act. It's sitting in stillness long enough to hear the thoughts beneath the thoughts. It's breathing deeply enough to separate the truth from the trauma. It's choosing to become the observer instead of the reactor again and again until the old wiring begins to dissolve and a new way of being begins to rise. You cannot think your way to peace through judgment. You cannot think your way to love through resistance. But you can return always to a thought that is in harmony with who you truly are. A thought of grace, a thought of openness, a thought of I am already enough. And from that thought, a new vibration radiates outward, not in a shout, but in a silent frequency that draws new realities to your feet. Your job is not to fix the world. Your job is to think in alignment with truth and let the world respond to your alignment. That's how reality changes, not from resistance, but from resonance. If you don't like what life is reflecting, look not at the mirror, but at the face you're presenting to it. Change the internal pattern, and the reflection must follow. So many of us are addicted to fixing. We want to fix the job, the relationship, the circumstances. But rarely do we stop to examine the thinking that attracted those circumstances to begin with. And until that examination takes place, we find ourselves repeating the same storylines with different characters. Because the pattern was never out there, it was in here, in the thoughts we chose to believe, in the identities we wore like armor, in the narratives we never questioned. But now you see it. And with that seeing comes choice. And with choice comes healing. And with healing comes liberation. This is your turning point. Not because the stars have aligned, not because the world has suddenly become easier, but because you've decided to no longer abandon yourself with your thoughts. You've decided to no longer speak to yourself in ways you would never speak to another soul. You've decided to no longer give your power away to fleeting fears and old scripts. You've decided at last to come home to yourself. And home is not a place. It is a state of being. It is the vibration of love you allow yourself to rest in. It is the clarity that emerges when the mind softens. It is the deep, unwavering knowing that you are not here to be perfect, but to be whole. Not here to compete, but to contribute. Not here to survive, but to awaken. And awakening begins with thought. Not loud ones, not dramatic ones, but subtle, consistent thoughts of truth. Thoughts like, I am not my past. I am not this fear. I am not a victim of circumstance. I am a divine being, temporarily inhabiting form. I am allowed to think new thoughts. I am allowed to release the old. I am allowed to create a new reality, starting now, and then you do. Not all at once, but moment by moment, thought by thought, and those small shifts begin to gather, like droplets that become a stream, a current, a river, and finally a sea of transformation. You look around and the world seems to smile back, not because it has changed, but because you have. Your thinking has softened, your frequency has elevated, and the quality of your life has become the natural result. And as you continue on this path, not forward, but inward, you begin to realize that life has always been speaking to you in the language of reflection. Not punishment, not reward, but feedback. It shows you again and again the quality of your thoughts made visible. If your world is chaotic, perhaps your inner world has been cluttered. If your days feel heavy, perhaps your thoughts have been weighted by beliefs that no longer serve you. This is not to blame, this is to empower. Because if thought created it, thought can change it. You are not here to control every outcome. You are here to master your inner response to each outcome. That mastery is not stoicism, it is sacred receptivity. It is the art of choosing peace without the need for perfection. It is the quiet strength of being grounded in awareness, no matter what storms may come. And that grounding begins with one sacred habit: choosing higher thoughts. This is not about positive thinking as a mask. This is about truthful thinking as a mirror. Thinking that does not pretend life is perfect, but sees clearly that you are not the victim of it. That even when you do not control the wind, you can still set your sail, and your thoughts are the sail. So when the day begins, ask yourself, what direction will I sail today? Will you drift with the currents of fear? Will you replay the grievances of yesterday and call it truth? Will you grip tightly to your judgments and call it strength? Or will you release, not because you're giving up, but because you're waking up? Waking up to the truth that your mind is not a prison unless you let it become one. Your power lies in awareness. Awareness that watches thought without clinging to it. Awareness that sees a fearful thought and smiles gently, saying, I hear you, but I do not follow you. Awareness that witnesses an old wound rising and says, I understand. And I choose to bless it, not repeat it. This is the quiet revolution, the inner uprising that changes everything not by force but by vision, by returning to the truth that thought is creative, not reactive, that your experience of life is not happening to you, but through you, through the lens of your beliefs, through the patterns of your focus, through the tone of your self-talk. Speak to yourself kindly, not because it's trendy, but because your cells are listening, your nervous system is listening, your energy field is listening, and every thought you repeat becomes a vibration in your body, a signal to your reality, a prophecy unfolding in silence. So speak with reverence, even when you're tired, even when you're unsure, especially when you're afraid. That is when the power of your thinking becomes sacred. That is when you step not into illusion, but into alignment, into truth, into love. Not love as sentiment, but love as vibration, love as clarity. Love as the refusal to think thoughts that betray your divinity. Let your thinking become a prayer, not with folded hands, but with an open mind. Let every thought be a candle lit in the dark room of unconsciousness. Let your inner dialogue reflect your divine inheritance, not your conditioned past. You are not here to rehearse wounds. You are here to remember wholeness. And when you forget, as we all do, return again. Return to the breath, return to the stillness, return to the observer within you who has never been harmed, never been afraid, never been less than divine. That witness within you is your anchor. And when your thinking returns to that awareness, the world begins to respond in kind. You may notice people treating you differently. You may find synchronicities arriving with more ease. You may watch as what once felt like effort begins to feel like flow. This is not coincidence. This is coherence. Coherence between who you are, how you think, and what you allow yourself to feel. And when that coherence is present, miracles are not rare, they are natural, because miracles are not events. They are perceptions. They are shifts in thinking from fear to love, from lack to trust, from separation to unity. And the more often you allow that shift in the quiet space of your mind, the more your entire life becomes a sanctuary of grace. You were never broken. You were only believing broken thoughts. You were never unworthy. You were only echoing unworthy beliefs. You were never disconnected. You were only distracted. And now you remember. You remember that every thought is a paintbrush, and your life is the canvas. Paint with intention. Paint with vision. Paint with love. Because the masterpiece of your life is not made with your hands, it's made with your mind. Then let us keep walking gently, steadily, down this sacred path of remembering. Because remembering who you are is not a grand announcement, not a mountaintop moment with trumpets and crowds. It is a soft return, a humble realignment with the center of your being. And that return begins with a single conscious thought. I no longer choose to think in opposition to my soul. You see, the soul doesn't argue. It doesn't scream. It doesn't compete for your attention. It simply waits quietly, faithfully, lovingly beneath the chatter of the mind. And when your thinking finally slows, when you stop rehearsing the noise long enough to be still, you feel it. That calm, sacred knowing, that presence that cannot be described, only experienced. That is who you are beneath the thoughts. But most people never meet that presence because they are too busy managing a mind that was never taught how to rest. A mind trained in survival, not serenity. A mind so addicted to solving problems that it forgets the greatest solution is often surrender. And here's the paradox. The more you try to control your thinking through force, the more chaotic it becomes. Because the ego loves a fight, but the soul whispers, there is nothing to fight. There is only something to release. So release it. Release the idea that your thoughts define you. Release the belief that your worth must be earned. Release the illusion that peace is conditional. And in that releasing, you begin to rise, not with effort, but with ease. Because the heavy thoughts fall away, and what remains is light. And what is light always remembers how to rise. The quality of your life, beloved, is not about the things you can accumulate, not about the titles you can achieve, not even about the milestones you cross. The quality of your life is about the quality of your presence. And presence is the gift you give yourself when your thoughts no longer drag you away from the now. In this moment here, now there is no problem. There is only breath. There is only being. And there is the choice right here to think a thought that brings you closer to peace. A thought that opens the window rather than slams the door. A thought that loves instead of judges. A thought that forgives instead of punishes. A thought that lifts instead of locks. And yes, you are allowed to choose those thoughts, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because those are the moments that shape the landscape of your life. Anyone can think beautifully when things are easy, but to think lovingly in the face of fear, to think kindly when the world is cruel, to think abundantly when the bank account says otherwise, that is the true power of spiritual maturity. That is the fire of awakened thinking. That is the light that cannot be put out by circumstance. You are not your old reactions. You are not your unconscious habits. You are not your childhood programming. You are not your inner critic. You are not your inherited shame. You are not the wounds of your lineage. You are the sky that holds it all. You are the space between the thoughts. You are the stillness beneath the storm. And in that stillness, you are free. From this stillness, begin again. Begin thinking in the language of truth. I am here. I am whole. I am aligned. I am willing. I am enough. You don't need the world to agree with you to think in alignment with love. You don't need proof to think in alignment with abundance. You don't need apologies to think in alignment with forgiveness. The outer world does not need to shift first. You do. And once you do, the world, as if by divine reflection, follows. Not always instantly, not always in the ways you expect, but always faithfully, because your outer world is a delayed reflection of your inner devotion. So devote yourself to thoughts that heal, to thoughts that build, to thoughts that honor your sacredness. Devote yourself to thinking like someone who knows they are connected to Source, because you are. You always have been. No thought can sever that connection. But every thought can either obscure it or reveal it. Choose the thoughts that reveal. Choose the thoughts that set you free. Choose the thoughts that invite miracles. Because when the quality of your thinking rises, your whole life becomes a reflection of heaven lived on earth. And the door to that heaven is always unlocked. You simply need to think your way home. Then let us in, not with noise, but with a whisper, the kind that reaches deeper than any shout ever could. Your life is not waiting on the outside, it is blooming from the inside. You are not here to collect thoughts like trophies or chase perfection through the mind. You are here to think in alignment with the truth you already are. So pause, breathe, and remember, the quality of your life is the quality of the thoughts you nurture when no one else is listening. Choose thoughts that return you to peace. Choose thoughts that remember your wholeness. Choose thoughts that make room for grace. And when in doubt, choose love. Because the most powerful thought you will ever think is, I already am. And from that knowing, everything changes forever.
There is a sacred moment in every soul's journey when it finally stops running, not from the world, not from failure, not even from pain, but from itself. A moment so quiet it cannot be heard with the ears, yet so loud it echoes through lifetimes. That is the moment of awakening. And it is not found in striving, nor earned through suffering. It comes when you realize this one truth. You cannot move forward holding on. It's a simple sentence, almost forgettable, yet within it lies the entire path to peace, to love, to healing, to liberation. And like all great truths, it doesn't need your agreement to remain true. It only asks for your surrender. But that, for many, is the hardest part, because we cling not only to what hurt us, but to what shaped us. We cling to old identities, to past betrayals, to outdated beliefs, to fear disguised as loyalty, to guilt disguised as love, to pain disguised as purpose. We say we want freedom, but we carry chains of memory around our neck like heirlooms. We say we want peace, but we fuel wars inside our minds with stories of how it should have been, how they should have acted, how we should have known. But life is not lived in the should. It is lived in the now. And now this breath, this moment, this heartbeat is not waiting for you to fix the past. It's waiting for you to release it. Letting go is not forgetting. It is remembering who you are without the burden. It is not denial. It is deeper acceptance. It is saying, I no longer choose to be bound by what no longer serves the becoming of my soul. And that is not weakness. That is not spiritual bypassing. That is the courage of a soul who has seen the fire walk through the ashes and no longer wishes to carry the smoke. You were not born to carry resentment like a badge. You were not created to wear your pain like identity. You were not placed in this body to rehearse tragedy or cling to stories that diminish your light. You are not the wound. You are not the betrayal. You are not the shame. You are the awareness that sees it, the presence that observes it, the light that transcends it. But that light cannot move if you keep anchoring it to old storms. The past is not a place you live. It is a classroom you pass through, and if you don't leave the classroom, you cannot graduate. If you keep rewriting the same paragraph of pain in your mind, how can the next chapter begin? The story of your life is not meant to be one sentence on repeat. It is meant to evolve, to rise, to grow wings. But first, you must loosen your grip on the weight. Ask yourself gently, what have I been holding on to that is holding me back? Is it an apology I never received? A mistake I made years ago? A love that didn't stay? A parent who never saw me? A self-image rooted in survival but starving my spirit? These things, real as they were, are not real now. They are echoes. And you, dear soul, are not an echo. You are the sound. You are the presence. You are the living, breathing miracle that was never meant to dwell in shadows. The ego will tell you that letting go is losing, that forgiveness is weakness, that your pain is power, and to release it is to betray yourself. But the ego is the voice of fear, and fear is clever but not wise. It will try to convince you that if you let go, you'll lose control. But here's the paradox. Only in surrender do you find real control. Only in release do you find peace. Only in unclenching do your hands become free to receive the gifts of now. There is no freedom in reliving the betrayal. There is no healing in reopening the wound. There is no love in rehearsing your unworthiness. So when will you stop? Not because you're forced to, not because someone told you to, but because your soul is tired of dragging yesterday into today, because your heart is heavy with stories that no longer speak your truth, because somewhere deep inside you remember what it felt like to be free before the world told you to be ashamed, before life convinced you to fear, before you mistook survival for identity. You are not here to survive anymore. You are here to live fully, freely, boldly, and living cannot happen in reverse. Release is not a moment. It is a practice, a daily offering of the soul, a choice to say, today, I no longer participate in my own imprisonment. It's waking up and gently, without blame, without shame, placing one thought after another on the altar of surrender. It's saying to your mind, thank you for protecting me, but I don't need this story to be safe anymore. I don't need this pain to remind me who I am, because who you are does not come from what hurt you. It comes from what lives beneath the hurt, the silent stillness, the space between thoughts. The observer who never changes, no matter how much your story does, this observer, this divine spark, is always whispering, let it go. Let it go so you can rise. Let it go so you can feel joy without fear. Let it go so you can move forward not with bitterness, but with wisdom. Let it go not because it didn't matter, but because you do. And that's the heart of it. You matter more than the memory. You matter more than the injustice. You matter more than the approval you never got. Your peace matters more than your need to be right. Your freedom matters more than the familiar pain you've rehearsed for years. But to honor your worth, you must be willing to unclench, to stop worshiping the pain as teacher and begin seeing it as doorway, to stop bowing at the altar of memory and begin dancing in the sanctuary of now. Letting go is not something you do once and forget. It is something you live. It is a frequency you choose, a vibration of lightness, a declaration of trust, trust that you are safe without the story, trust that you are held even in the unknown, trust that the future does not need your wounds to build itself. It only needs your presence. And the present, this sacred, miraculous now, is always whispering, come home. Come home not to who they wanted you to be, but who you were before the world taught you to hold on. Come home to your breath, to your body, to your being. You cannot move forward holding on. Not because you're bad, not because you're broken, but because life is motion and clinging is a form of spiritual paralysis. You were not made to stay stuck. You were made to evolve, to open, to expand. So loosen the grip just a little. Breathe into the space that opens. Trust what rises to the surface. And listen, truly listen to the still voice within that's been waiting, not for your perfection, but for your willingness. The willingness to be free. There is a place beyond thought, beyond pain, beyond identity, where all that remains is awareness, pure, infinite, undivided awareness. It does not grieve the past. It does not fear the future. It does not hold on. It simply is. And this place is you. The eternal you. The you that cannot be damaged by what they said. The you that cannot be diminished by what happened. The you that doesn't seek validation, doesn't chase worth, doesn't collect grievances as proof of identity. That you is still here, beneath the layers, beneath the noise, beneath the stories that you keep recycling, like old photographs, whose colors have long faded, but whose emotional residue still stings. You keep returning to the wound because some part of you believes healing is found in the familiarity of pain. But healing is not found in rereading the same chapter. Healing is found in the decision to close the book. You don't have to destroy it. You don't have to burn the pages. You simply have to stop opening it every morning as if your worth is still written there. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become in the space after. And that space, that divine, limitless, quiet space, is where your power has always lived. The power to let go, to forgive, to transcend, not because it makes what happened okay, but because it frees you from the prison of identifying with it. The greatest act of liberation is not marching out into the world demanding change. It is turning inward and saying, I refuse to suffer twice. Once for the event, and again for the memory of it. That is radical freedom. That is soul maturity. That is awakening. To awaken is not to fix yourself. It is to remember you were never broken. It is to gently, lovingly begin removing the masks. The one that says, I am a victim. The one that says, I am not enough. The one that says, I must be strong by never letting go. Strength is not resistance. It is surrender. It is the surrender of the false self, the one built on defense, on survival, on gripping, so that the true self can emerge. And when it does, oh, how light the world becomes. Because suddenly, you are not walking around armored by trauma. You are walking around open, vulnerable, whole. You are no longer echoing the past in every relationship, every silence, every expectation. You are present, here, awake. And presence, true presence, has no room for yesterday's ghosts. The mind will try to tempt you back. It will whisper, but they never apologized. It will shout, but you were wronged. It will plead, but if you let go, who will protect you? Let it speak. Let it cry. Let it roar. And then smile at it the way you would smile at a child who still believes monsters live under the bed. Because fear is a child, and the ego is its bedtime story. But you are the parent now. You are the one who says, shh, it's okay. We don't need to hold on to that anymore. We don't need to keep the pain to feel safe. We are safe now. We are loved now. We are free now. And in that moment, the soul exhales, because the soul has always known letting go is not loss. It is return. It is the return to your nature, to your wholeness, to the place before fear taught you to close, before shame taught you to shrink, before pain taught you to pretend. You don't have to pretend anymore. Not to be okay, not to be strong, not to be what someone else needed you to be so you could feel loved. Love does not ask for pretending. Love only asks for presence. And presence cannot enter a heart that is clenched. Unclench, let the light in. Let it find the parts of you that still believe pain is proof. Let it bathe the corners of your spirit where old voices still live, repeating old verdicts. You're not worthy. You're too much. You should have known better. Let the light find those voices and show them the door, not with anger, but with compassion. Because they were trying to protect you once. But you don't need protection now. You need truth. You need softness. You need grace. And grace is what arrives when you let go. It does not enter through the door of control. It enters through the window of surrender. It drips down like rain on a dry desert soul, refreshing, forgiving, soothing. And once you felt it, truly felt it, you will never again mistake holding on for strength. So breathe, and as you breathe, feel the weight begin to lift, not all at once, but breath by breath. Let each inhale be a promise. I choose life. Let each exhale be a release. I surrender the rest. Because holding on is not sacred. Letting go is. Holding on is not loyal. Letting go is. Holding on is not love. Letting go is. Love says, I want you to be free, even if you is a version of yourself still stuck in yesterday, even if you is someone who hurt you but doesn't have power over you anymore, even if you is the person you thought you had to be. You don't. You don't have to be anything today except free. And to be free, you must make peace with the fact that the past will never be different. And that's okay. It doesn't need to change for you to heal. It only needs your willingness to no longer carry it as your identity. You are not here to avenge the past. You are here to resurrect the present. You are not here to prove your pain. You are here to embody your light. And that light, oh beloved, that light was never lost. Only hidden beneath layers of thought, of memory, of identification. But light is not destroyed by shadows, it only waits to be uncovered. Uncover it, not tomorrow, not next year, now. Because every day you wait is a day you feed what no longer serves you. Every moment you delay is a moment you remain bound, and you were not born to be bound. You were born to remember. You cannot move forward holding on. Not because you're doing it wrong, but because you were never meant to stay in one place, especially not one built from pain. You are fluid. You are ever-changing. You are movement itself. Life through you wants to dance, not dwell. Wants to rise, not ruminate. Wants to create, not cling. So step into that stream. Let go of the banks. Trust that where it takes you is exactly where your soul has been trying to go all along. Freedom is not in the future. Freedom is in the decision to stop gripping the past. Let go. Let go, because the moment you do, your soul will rise, not as a victim, not as a survivor, but as what it has always been beneath the story, a miracle. And miracles don't hold on. They flow. There comes a moment when the soul is no longer content with just surviving, when getting by, hanging on, and pushing through start to feel like spiritual starvation. When even your most convincing justifications for pain begin to sound hollow in your own ears. This is the moment of divine dissatisfaction, not with the world, not with others, not even with your past, but with the false self you've outgrown. Because pain has an expiration date, but only you can choose to honor it. You are not here to rehearse hurt until it becomes your home. You are here to outgrow it, transcend it, gently set it down like old clothes that no longer fit. And that's the thing about holding on. It often feels like protection when it's really stagnation. It feels like strength when it's really resistance. It feels like identity when it's really avoidance. Avoidance of truth, avoidance of presence, avoidance of the sacred emptiness that comes before transformation. But emptiness is not something to fear. It is the womb of rebirth. The ego will do everything it can to avoid this void. It will bargain, analyze, justify, and distract. It will fill the space with noise, with judgment, with replays and projections, because the ego knows that if you sit in the silence long enough, you will remember who you really are, and the ego cannot survive in that remembrance. Because in truth, you are not the one who was abandoned, betrayed, or rejected. You are the one who witnessed it. You are not the character in the story. You are the light that holds the entire story. You are not the mistake. You are not the regret. You are not the sorrow. You are the sky, and these were only passing storms. So why build a house beneath the clouds? Why stay anchored to a moment that no longer exists? Why continue to argue for your pain as if it gives you meaning? You do not need pain to prove your depth. You do not need sorrow to prove your strength. You do not need struggle to prove your value. You, beloved, are valuable because you exist, not because you endured. You are worthy because you breathe, not because you suffered. This is the cosmic truth. You are already enough, already whole, already free. You only suffer when you forget. And forgetting is easy in a world that teaches you to collect wounds like currency. You are praised for your scars, but not your healing. Admired for your endurance, but not your peace. Celebrated for your hustle, but not your stillness. But healing is not a performance. Peace is not applause, and stillness is not laziness. It is presence. Presence that allows you to finally say, I am ready to let go. Not because I am weak, but because I am done confusing pain with purpose. I am done mistaking familiar for right. I am done feeding a story that keeps me small. The story is not who you are. It's who you were when you didn't yet know how free you could be. And you are learning now, you are beginning to see that the only chains still holding you are the ones you keep feeding with your focus. That memory only has weight when you choose to lift it. That pain only echoes when you keep calling its name. You are beginning to see that letting go is not erasing it, is evolving. You are not deleting the past. You are releasing its grip on your future. You are not abandoning what shaped you. You are honoring what you've outgrown. And just like the tree does not mourn the leaves it sheds each autumn, your soul does not grieve the stories it no longer needs. It rejoices. It dances. It rises lighter into the sky of infinite becoming. Let yourself shed. Let yourself become. Let yourself be free of the need to fix what never needed fixing in the first place, because your worth, your divinity, your light was never broken, only buried. Buried beneath layers of not enough. Buried beneath they don't love me. Buried beneath I failed. Beneath they left. Beneath I should have done more. But you cannot breathe deeply when you are buried in shame. You cannot rise when you are wrapped in guilt. You cannot love when you are still holding on to a version of yourself who was only trying to survive. It's time to rise, not by force, but by release. Not by adding more, but by surrendering what never belonged to your essence. The pain was never yours to keep. The betrayal was never yours to carry. The guilt was never yours to wear. These were experiences, not definitions. Events, not destinies. Chapters, not conclusions. So take a breath, and with that breath, send love to every version of yourself who didn't know how to let go, to the one who stayed too long, to the one who held on too tightly, to the one who thought that by carrying the pain, they were proving something noble, something holy. And then, with your next breath, release them. Let the younger you rest. Let the sorrow be seen, then dissolve. Let the river of now carry away the residue of yesterday, not with effort, with grace, because grace is the rhythm of the soul when it's finally free from pretending. You don't have to pretend anymore, not to be fine, not to be strong, not to be perfect. You only have to be present. And in presence, there is no room for clinging. Clinging requires tension. Holding on creates resistance. But your soul was made for flow, for expansion, for becoming. And all becoming begins with release. This is the paradox of the spiritual path. We rise not by reaching, but by releasing. Not by striving, but by softening. Not by gripping, but by trusting. Trust the letting go. Trust the space that opens when you no longer identify with your pain. Trust the silence that comes when the ego stops shouting. Trust the you that emerges when the past is no longer your mirror. You are not what you lost. You are what remains, and what remains is more than enough. So here you are, standing at the edge of a new moment. A moment untouched by your past, untainted by your fears, and unburdened by your stories. A sacred threshold. And the invitation has never been clearer step forward. But you cannot step forward with clenched fists. You cannot move into light while gripping shadows. You cannot rise in truth while wrapped in yesterday. The soul longs to soar, but it cannot fly while you're still tethered to the anchor of what once was. And so you must choose not with the mind, not with logic, not with fear, but with faith. The faith that what lies ahead is more aligned with who you are becoming than what lies behind. And that is the real miracle of letting go. It's not the disappearance of pain, it's the appearance of peace. It's not erasing the story, it's rewriting your relationship to it. It's not pretending it didn't matter, it's realizing you matter more. You are the main character of your life, not the villain of someone else's. You are the author, not the victim. You are the creator, not the captive. But to create, to author, to move you, must put the old pen down. The one that only knows how to write in grief, the one that only sketches in scarcity, the one that doesn't yet believe in your joy. Hold your own hand now. Let the sacred in you rise up and say, no more. No more giving my energy to what cannot love me back. No more feeding the past with the power of the present. No more trading my future for familiar suffering. And in that vow, that sacred, silent vow, you are born again. Not into perfection, but into permission. Permission to love without fear. Permission to forgive without conditions. Permission to be whole without apology. There is nothing noble in keeping your pain alive. You do not need to honor it by repeating it. You do not need to prove your endurance by wearing it. What you went through shaped you, yes, but now your liberation will define you. The ego will say, but if I let go, who am I? And the soul will whisper, finally, yourself. The self that is free of shame, because it remembers that mistakes are part of growth. The self that is free of resentment, because it recognizes that carrying poison does not heal the wound. The self that is free of the need to perform, to prove, to punish, because it has finally come home. And home is not a destination. It is a state of being, a return to presence, a return to peace, a return to the divine. And that's what letting go truly is. It is a return, not a loss, not an ending, not a giving up, but a homecoming, a sacred reunion with your true nature. And in that reunion, there is no room for guilt, no room for proving, no room for replaying what already happened 1,000 times in your mind. There is only breath. And this breath, this holy inhale and exhale, it does not live in yesterday. It does not carry your story. It does not ask who was right. It only asks, are you here? And so I ask you now, are you here? Are you in this breath? Or still lost in a moment that no longer exists? Are you ready to rise? Or still bargaining with a version of yourself that was built on survival? Are you willing, not perfectly, not forever, just in this moment, to let go? To let go of the old pain, not because it wasn't real, but because your healing is more important. To let go of the resentment, not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve peace. To let go of the story, not because it didn't shape you, but because it no longer defines you. You are allowed to be new. You are allowed to walk away from the pain. You are allowed to lay down the guilt. You are allowed to stop carrying your suffering as proof of your worth. You are allowed to be light. And so, in this moment, choose. Choose freedom over familiarity. Choose peace over performance. Choose presence over pain. Let go. Let go. Let go. Not just once, not just today, but as a practice, a rhythm, a way of life. Because this moment, this sacred now, is waiting for you, and it has no room for what you refuse to release. So unclench, exhale, come home to yourself, and remember, you cannot move forward holding on. But the moment you let go even just a little, the universe moves with you. The stars lean closer, the wind shifts, and your path, once clouded by grief, opens with grace. This is your time, not to forget who you were, but to become who you are. Not to avenge your past, but to embody your peace. Not to prove your story, but to live your truth. You are not your pain. You are not your past. You are not your ego. You are not your fear. You are the light that has waited patiently beneath it all. And now that light is ready to rise. Let it move through you. Let it love through you. Let it speak, dance, sing, weep, awaken. Let it be your truth. Let it be your guide. Let it be your home. Because your soul was never meant to carry the burden of what no longer is. It was meant to live in the beauty of what always was. And what always was is you free, whole. Now,